Hey listeners, welcome to Tetsuo Tells a Story. I'm Tetsuo. Thank you for joining in and listening to the stories that I tell. 2 out of the 3 following scary sleep paralysis stories were posted in the Reddit community, and the last story was submitted by a subscriber from the Hmong community. Their usernames are in the description below. Thank you for sharing them with us. Some names and details have been edited to remove identifying features or to fix the flow of the story. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to Tetsuo Tells a Story on YouTube and podcast providers such as Anchor and Spotify. Alrighty, let's get on with these 3 true scary sleep paralysis stories. Story 1, titled, My First Experience of Sleep Paralysis. First, some background. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I got out because of medical reasons. I was also diagnosed with PTSD. I have never been in combat, but I experienced an event in combat training that happened to me when I was sleeping. This event is considered hazing, and it was done to me by my own unit. Since this event, I have always had trouble sleeping and staying asleep, or having nightmares. Okay, so now for what happened. This happened back in 2015, 2 years after I have gotten out of the military. For a whole month, I had been missing work because my medication for my PTSD had stopped working for me. This caused me agonizing anxiety throughout my days and nightmares / flashbacks of what happened to me in combat training nights. Another thing to note, we always kept the hallway light on, and my door is always open so my cats can roam the house. One night, I kept having nightmares of different people breaking into my house. From what I can remember, I had 3 different nightmares of 3 different individuals breaking into my house. I woke up to the dark figure in my 3rd nightmare, standing in my hallway. I tried to scream, "Hey, who the fuck are you?" But nothing came out. It was like I was just screaming inside of my own head. This is when I decided to get up and murder this stranger. But that is when I realized I couldn't move. My anger quickly became utter fear when I realized that I was completely defenseless, and tears started to stream down my face. The figure just stood in the doorway, not moving and not saying anything. When I blinked, the figure disappeared, and I was able to move again. I sat up in bed and cried. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I got my medication changed as soon as possible right after that night. I have since had my PTSD under control again, and back at work. Even though I still struggle to sleep, I have not had an episode of sleep paralysis since then. Story 2, titled, I Hope You Never Do. Before I start, you gotta know that I have a long history of multiple sleep paralysis, and it began ever since I was a child. I dare say multiple times in a night. I'm an 18-year-old male, and well, I moved out of my mother's house 2 years ago, and I've been independent since then. I have been roommates with my uncle for a couple months now, but that's a different story. Anyways, this is going to be a little awkward given the fact that I was listening to scary stories while trying to fall back asleep after waking up at 5 a.m. the same date I'm writing this post, September 25th, 2018. While I was falling asleep with my headphones on, I started to realize I've woken up, but my body couldn't move. Now, it was weird for me, given the fact that I haven't had any sleep paralysis recently for a very long time. but I knew what I was going through. My vision started to blur, my head felt heavy, but I could still hear the voice coming out of my headphone, narrating a story.
They run. They laugh. I see the glow shining on their eyes.
The strangest thing is that I somehow managed to move my hand, and I tried to take off my earbuds. But as much as I tried, I could not take them off. It's as if they were glued to my ears. I somehow managed to take them off, but here's where it gets freaky. I could still hear the voice. I touched my ears and checked if there was anything there. Nothing. I couldn't feel the earbuds at all. I was weirded out. I started yelling for my uncle, calling his name to see if he could hear me, but there was no response. Every time I yelled, my voice got weaker. It's as if instead of yelling, I was whispering in a very loud way. That's when I started to see things, like demons and deformed faces, just staring at me and evilly smiling. I can't explain how they looked, but they were flashing in the ceiling. Weird, right? Yeah, I know. As I was sort of freaking out, I literally did what any young kid would do. I hid under my blanket. Not because I was scared or frightened for my life, but to see if those faces would just go away. Though they did, it doesn't end there. Here is the most freaky and the weirdest shit that happened. My vision started to clear and I was able to move freely. It's when I realized I'd never even moved a muscle the whole time I was going through sleep paralysis. It turns out I was hallucinating shit and imagining that I was actually moving and yelling. Like I've said, I've experienced sleep paralysis for a long time, so I totally have experience on how to actually get out of it when it's the normal one, where you just awake and can't move. Yeah, I know, that's the whole point of one, but not all of them about hallucination and imagining things. This one was one of the few paralysis where I hallucinated and imagined things. Like I said, I have not had one in over a year. I could say this is one of the most recent one. I know it's probably not that scary, but for those who've had experienced sleep paralysis, you know how terrifying it could be and get. It takes a strong mind and soul to get out of one, because you're literally struggling with yourself to be able to move and to just come back to reality. For those who have never experienced sleep paralysis in their life, I really hope you never do. Story 3, titled A Funeral and a Korean Prince. I dreamt I was at a funeral. There were a few guys who liked me, and they were going to stay over at my place. In the Hmong culture, at funerals, some people stay over at relatives or other people's houses because it is a resting place for people after a long day at the funeral home or from traveling long distances. After seeing those guys, I then saw one of my guy friends. I can tell he still likes me a lot in this dream, but in reality, I rejected him, and I will never date or like him, although he is cute. But in the dream, I asked him to take a walk with me. We went outside, and he grabbed my hand. I was kinda shocked, but I felt safe and happy. He was holding my hand, and we were talking about how we are all doing, and then we turned back and walked towards the funeral home. As we were walking back, I asked if he wanted to sleep over at my place because he's traveled far. He replied,
Yes.
In my head, I wasn't even aware or noticed, but I was kinda falling for him. But I kept telling myself, of course, that I don't like him, and of course I don't have feelings for him in reality. On our way back to the funeral, a lady saw us and made fun of him, and it seemed like she didn't like him. I told him, "Who is she? "Do you know her?" Then he said,
"I have no clue who she is."
I thought it might have been his ex-girlfriend or something, but it wasn't. Then I believe the lady is one of my spirit guides, because I always have a girl spirit guide with me. She probably sent something bad, that's why she doesn't like him. While I was in the funeral home, I saw another guy who was almost naked. The only thing he was wearing was an underwear. This half-naked man said he was gonna do some kind of dance, like bust out breakdancing or something. It was funny and weird because I've never seen anyone do that at a Hmong funeral. Then I transitioned back to reality and I was no longer in the dream. I was in my room. My room was bright because I have Christmas lights on. I was still in my bed, but I saw a guy standing in front of me. He was right by the foot of my bed. He looked like a really handsome Korean guy. A Korean prince, I would say. You know, like Park Bo-gum and Moonlight drawn by the clouds, and dressed in those traditional clothes too. But it freaked me out so bad. I slightly closed my eyes, but I opened them just a little bit so I can see if he was still there. While I was fake closing my eyes, I can hear him talking.
서약서 제1항 앞으로 서로에게 존댓말만 사용한다. 어기 시에 헤어짐 플러스 상대방에게 50만 원을 원칙으로 한다.
And then he swung the long sleeves of his traditional garment over me, and it felt like he was trying to make me open my eyes. His voice was so loud, and I can hear it vividly. He was like a few inches apart from me. He didn't move to come closer or anything. He just kept swinging his sleeves back and forth, trying to tease me. I got so scared I still heard him giggling and talking. Then I opened my eyes and I prayed. I told it to go away, but it didn't. Then I prayed and asked God to help me. I said, "God, if you're real, get rid of this thing in front of me." Then I freaking woke up. But now I remember I have a mannequin. Many spirits take form by using my mannequin as a host. That might have been the case. Whatever it was, I have a lot more stories to tell, but we can save them for another time. Thank you everyone for listening in on these 3 true sleep paralysis stories. If you enjoyed these 3 stories, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Tetsuo Tells a Story. Again, you can find me on YouTube and podcast providers such as Anchor, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, and so much more. Do you have a story to tell? Hey, let me know and I can read it to the world. See you in the next episode. Thanks.